In the small town of Brooksville, nestled deep within a forest, there stood an old, abandoned hospital. Once known as St. Mary's Asylum, it had been a beacon of hope and care in the late 1800s, treating patients with mental illnesses. However, after a series of mysterious deaths and unexplained occurrences, it was shut down in the early 1900s. Locals claimed it was cursed, and over the years, the building fell into disrepair, becoming a place of dread and urban legends. In 2024, a group of 5 friends, Mark, Sarah, Jake, Lisa, and Emily, decided to explore the infamous asylum. They were paranormal enthusiasts and had heard stories of ghostly apparitions, strange noises, and the feeling of being watched. Armed with cameras, flashlights, and a Ouija board, they entered the decrepit building, ready to uncover its secrets. The air inside was cold and damp, carrying the scent of mildew and decay. The walls were peeling and the floor was littered with debris. As they walked through the hallways, their footsteps echoed ominously. They started in the lobby, where an old reception desk stood covered in dust. "Let's start with the basement," suggested Jake, who had a knack for finding the creepiest spots. The group descended the creaky stairs to the basement, where the hospital had once housed its most disturbed patients. The air grew colder, and their breath became visible in the dim light of their flashlights. As they explored, they found old medical equipment, rusted and forgotten, alongside tattered straitjackets and dark stains on the walls and floors. Mark, who was filming, caught a glimpse of movement out of the corner of his eye. "Did you see that?" he whispered, pointing his camera towards a dark corner. The others turned but saw nothing. "Probably just a rat," Sarah said, trying to sound confident. They continued exploring, moving from room to room. In one room, they found an old operating table with restraints, the leather cracked and brittle with age. Jake suggested they use the Ouija board there, thinking it would be the perfect spot to contact any lingering spirits. They set up the board on a metal tray table and gathered around. Emily, the most skeptical of the group, reluctantly placed her fingers on the planchette with the others. "Is anyone here with us?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling slightly. For a few moments, nothing happened. Then the planchette began to move slowly. They watched in stunned silence as it spelled out, "GLP." "Who are you?" Mark asked, his voice shaky. The planchette moved again, this time spelling ELIZABETH. "Elizabeth? What happened to you?" Lisa asked. The planchette moved more quickly now. DOCTORCRANE. The friends exchanged nervous glances. Dr. Crane was a name they had heard in the local legends, a sadistic doctor who was rumored to have performed horrific experiments on the patients. "What did Dr. Crane do to you?" Emily asked, now fully invested in the session. The planchette moved violently, spelling out TORTURE. Suddenly, the temperature in the room plummeted, and they heard a faint, agonized scream echo through the halls. The group froze, fear gripping them. "We need to leave," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. As they packed up the Ouija board, they heard footsteps approaching from the hallway. Mark shined his flashlight towards the noise, revealing a shadowy figure standing just outside the door. The figure was tall, dressed in what appeared to be a doctor's coat. "Who are you?" Jake called out, but the figure didn't respond. Instead, it slowly moved closer. The friends backed away, fear escalating. The figure stepped into the light, revealing a gaunt, hollow-eyed face. It was Dr. Crane, or rather, his ghostly apparition. "You shouldn't have come here," he hissed, his voice like nails on a chalkboard. In a panic, the friends turned and fled the basement, racing up the stairs. As they reached the ground floor, the doors slammed shut behind them, and the lights flickered. The ghostly figure of Dr. Crane seemed to materialize and dematerialize, always just behind them. They sprinted through the hallways, trying to find an exit. Doors that had been open before were now locked, trapping them inside. The asylum seemed to be alive, twisting and changing to confuse and terrorize them. Emily tripped and fell, crying out in pain. Mark and Jake helped her up, but as they did, they heard another scream, this time from Lisa. She was pointing towards the end of the hallway, where a spectral figure of a young woman in a hospital gown stood, her eyes hollow and her mouth twisted in a silent scream. "It's Elizabeth," Lisa whispered. The apparition of Elizabeth raised her hand, pointing towards a door at the end of the hallway. Desperate, the group followed her direction, hoping for a way out. They reached the door, flung it open, and found themselves in what appeared to be the old staff quarters. Inside, they saw more ghostly figures, patients, and staff who had perished in the asylum, their eyes full of sorrow and pain. The room was filled with an overwhelming sense of despair and suffering. "We have to find another way out," Mark said, his voice shaking. As they turned to leave, the door slammed shut and the temperature dropped again. Dr. Crane's ghost appeared, his eyes burning with malevolence. "You will never leave," he growled. The friends huddled together, terrified and trapped. Suddenly, Elizabeth's ghost appeared beside them. She placed a hand on Sarah's shoulder, and a wave of calm washed over them. "You can help us," Elizabeth's voice echoed in their minds. "How?" Sarah asked aloud. "Destroy his power. Find the source," Elizabeth replied. The friends realized they had to find whatever was anchoring Dr. Crane's spirit to the asylum. With Elizabeth's guidance, they made their way to his old office, which was located on the top floor. The journey through the asylum was harrowing, with ghostly figures appearing and disappearing, and the building itself seeming to resist their progress. Finally, they reached the office. Inside, they found old medical journals, surgical instruments, and a locked cabinet. "Break it open," Jake said, and Mark used a metal rod to pry the cabinet door open. Inside, they found a collection of vials filled with dark, viscous liquid and a worn, leather-bound journal. As Mark opened the journal, he saw it was filled with detailed accounts of Dr. Crane's experiments and the torment he inflicted on his patients. "This is it," Mark said. "We need to destroy this." As they prepared to burn the journal and vials, Dr. Crane's ghost appeared, more furious than ever. The room grew dark and the temperature plummeted. "You will not destroy my work," he bellowed. Elizabeth's ghost appeared beside the friends, shielding them from Dr. Crane's wrath. "Do it now," she urged. Mark set the journal and vials on fire. As the flames consumed them, Dr. Crane's ghost screamed in agony, his form flickering and distorting. The asylum shook, and the ghostly figures of the patients and staff began to fade, their expressions turning to relief. The fire grew, and the friends realized they needed to escape before the entire building went up in flames. They rushed out of the office and down the stairs, the asylum's walls shaking and crumbling around them. With Elizabeth's guidance, they found an emergency exit that led them outside. They stumbled into the forest, gasping for breath, and watched as St. Mary's Asylum was engulfed in flames. The fire raged, lighting up the night sky, and they could hear the faint sound of screams and cries for help finally being silenced. As the flames died down, the friends sat in stunned silence, processing what they had just experienced. They knew they would never forget the horrors of the asylum and the spirits they had helped to free. In the days that followed, the town of Brooksville was abuzz with news of the fire. The old legends of St. Mary's Asylum were rekindled, but now there was a sense of closure. The friends vowed to never speak of their ordeal, but they knew that the spirits of the asylum, including Elizabeth, were finally at peace.